I cheated on my husband with his brother, and I have no regrets. Story time. Me and my husband were high school sweethearts. We got married when we were 20, and then we had our daughter when we were 26. And then we welcomed our son a few months later. I was working a really successful job, and we were living the life we'd always dreamed of in high school. My husband would shower me with flowers, gifts, he'd treat our kids like absolute royalty. But then over time he started to get, he started to get more and more distant with us. I'd catch him on his phone secretly, and this really began to break down my trust. And that was when I discovered that he was having an affair. We did talk about this, and he said that he didn't feel fulfilled in the relationship anymore and that I'd become really distant. But this was just because I was working so hard to provide for the family since he didn't have a job. And I'm not gonna lie, I really wanted to leave the marriage at this point, but I decided to stay for the sake of our kids. We decided that it might be good to try out couples counselling. And I'm not gonna lie, for the first few months, it really worked, and we were back to our usual happy selves. Again, the cycle continued. He got really distant, and when I confronted him about it, he confessed to having more affairs and spending nights at other women's houses. He had even had other women in our home, in our bed. What is that about? I moved him into the guest bedroom because I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't even bear to look at this man at this point. Throughout all of this, my husband's brother Steve became my main support network. Steve was there for us all of the time. He would pick them up for school, he would look after them, he would make tea when I was working late. This went on for 2 years. 2 years! And at this point, my children started to call Steve Dad. Me and Steve were spending a lot of time together, and I'm not gonna lie, we both absolutely loved it. We really clicked. So for Christmas one year, he actually booked me, my husband, and our kids a trip to Fiji. Fiji! Steve was desperate for me and his brother to try and fix things. However, when my husband found out, he told us to F off. Like, babe, it's Fiji. Let's just go for the free holiday. He then just outright refused to go. In the comments, is anyone else turning down a free trip to Fiji? Because I know I'm not. Then had a screaming argument about it. He was saying how he's not going away with our little brats. He called our kids brats. He said that his kids weren't his anymore and they were mistakes anyway. And I'm not gonna lie, this one really upset me and kind of threw me off a little bit. So I thought about it for a little while and realised that this trip was gonna happen, but I didn't want to go on my own with 2 kids. So naturally, I asked Steve. So this is now up to date. We went on holiday a week ago. Me, Steve, and all of the kids had an absolute blast. One of the best holidays I have ever been on. And my kids had such an incredible time with Steve. It makes me so happy knowing that they're gonna grow up with a father figure like him. So on this trip, we obviously, you know, got it on. And I'm not gonna lie, I chose the wrong brother, and the universe showed me the way to the right brother. But anyway, we got back this morning and I find my husband sat on the sofa. Let me know if you want part 2. I cheated on my husband with his brother, and I have no regrets. Storytime part 2. Make sure to check out part 1 here. So like I said, I got home and my husband was sat on the sofa waiting for us. He was bloody fuming. He asked me why I thought it was a good idea to take his brother. And I was like, well, you weren't going to come, so I wasn't just going to go on my own. But he was saying that the right thing to do would have been to discard the ticket. My husband then started to get a little bit leery and he would not calm down. The only way he would relax was if Steve was to wait outside. So Steve went and sat in the car. So at the moment, I'm in my sticking up for myself era. So I asked my husband if he'd had any girls over whilst we were in Fiji. And of course he did. And then he got really mad at me. And then he began to question if he was even the father of our children. Like, what? He was accusing Steve of actually being the father. He was like, they even look like him. Like, babe, your brothers, they're gonna look somewhat like him. So now he's forcing me to get a DNA test on both of our children. And after this, I straight up told him that I wanted a divorce. And I was actually shocked by how he reacted. He got so upset. Not the get up and start crying upset. More so the defeated. He lowered his head, like really disappointed. It was at this moment that he realised how much he had messed up. And not just the relationship with me. He realised that he'd ruined part of his kid's life. And he'd also done a lot of bad things to Steve as well. He then apologised. And he began begging for us to be able to work through it. And I'm not gonna lie, I really heavily considered this. Because I saw the guy that I'd fallen in love with in high school again. But then I stood up and realised who the fuck I was, and realised there was absolutely no way in hell this man was getting another chance. He was begging me to make sure that he would be able to see his kids. And I said that that wasn't an issue, but it had to be on their terms. After this, I chucked my husband out the house. I booked him an Uber and I told him to go wherever he needed to go. He packed up his stuff and went really peacefully, actually. After that, I told my kids to go and unpack upstairs and just take some time to chill. And this meant that me and Steve could have a chat about how we were going to move forward. We spoke about everything that had happened on the trip and how special it was for us. And we decided that we were really going to give it a go at dating. But we agreed that we were going to do this once the divorce was finalised, and it would also give the kids some time to readjust as well. I told the kids that they were more than welcome to see Steve whenever they wanted to, but he wouldn't be moving in with us straight away. Okay, so some little random updates. The kids have been in therapy because I thought it'd be a good idea for them to go to it. There's been a lot of big changes recently, and they seem to be getting on really, really well. The DNA test came back, and it proved that my husband was, in fact, the father. And then during our divorce proceedings, my husband's decided that he would like to get sole custody of the kids. This being the man that called them little brats, didn't want to go on holiday with us and hasn't looked after them for the past 2 years.
My 25 male friend sent me a screenshot of an active and verified Tinder profile of my boyfriend, 23 male. A friend of mine sent me some screenshots of a Tinder profile that had an active badge, meaning profile was online in the past 2 hours and it was verified. The profile had a bunch of photos of my boyfriend, and when I asked him about it, he swore it's a fake profile, saying it's not the first time he finds a fake profile with his pictures, and he said he deleted his Tinder account a long time ago. I found out that the profile was at least 12 miles away from his house, which is quite far even for inaccurate GPS. Anyway, I found all of this weird because verified profiles require selfies with specific gestures. The profile also had a lot of his real hobbies and personality traits, his college scores, his profession, etc. If the profile really is a fake one, it was created by someone who definitely knows him. Things got a little worse. I asked him to download Tinder and log in with his account. To me, he would download it and showed that he doesn't have an active account, or if he did, it was inactive, and that the other one was indeed a fake account. However, he denied me this, saying that relationships are based on trust and that I had to trust him, specifically because it's not the first time that I suspect him and get proved wrong, and he was tired of having to prove things. It's so funny when people break their partner's trust and they go, relationships are built on trust, and if you can't trust me, then you have trust issues. Like, the gaslighting. Now I don't know what to do. I love him and I want to trust him, but the profile was very convincing. Many photos, perfect description, and hobbies. Verified. He could have spent just 5 minutes to show me his account and shut me up, but instead he came with that trust talk. The only thing he did was show me that all of the photos that the profile had were available on his Instagram at some point since last year, meaning someone could have used them. Another behavior that I found weird was that he didn't even bother about the verified fake profile using his photos. I mean, who doesn't get upset with this? I offered him to help find the fake profile, and he didn't show any interest at all. What would you do? Should I ignore this and blindly trust him? Ooh, he has an update. The profile existed for at least 6 months, which is very hard achievement for a fake profile. I know this because a friend already chatted with that profile in January. The funniest part is that right after I left my boyfriend at his home, the profile suddenly gets deleted. A 6-month-old fake profile being deleted at the exact same day I confronted my boyfriend about that? LOL. I sent my child to wilderness therapy and I'm not sorry about it. My daughter is a sociopath. Ever since she was a child, she never seemed normal. She was always drawn away from us and very hostile. My partner and I lock her in her room at night to protect ourselves and to make sure she doesn't get into anything dangerous to harm us. We have caught her trying to get into our gun safe, as well as multiple attempts of grabbing knives from the kitchen to try to kill our son. We have tried everything. We have given her love, attention, toys, heart-to-heart conversations, one-on-one hangout days, and therapy. We even admitted her to a mental hospital for a year because she kept threatening to kill us and her little brother. Nothing had worked. Her therapist tells us everything we already do. Every other day, we plan family game night like Just Dance, bingo, etc. And it always ends with my daughter threatening to murder us in our sleep. She was soon after in a mental facility for 2 years after that, and when she came home, she was somehow worse. It got to the point where I was afraid for my family's safety, especially our son. So I looked into wilderness therapy. Before anyone says it's bad, I know it's bad. I know how they treat the children there. At this point, I just want my daughter gone. This family has taken enough of her abuse, and I have tried to make sure it didn't get to this point. I even asked family members if they could take her in, and they all declined because they are afraid of her and don't want to handle her. So I admitted her in, and she leaves Monday. She is 16 and will stay there until she is 18, where she can check herself out and leave. Before anyone calls me a bad parent, understand that it's hard to have a child be a part of your life when they grab a knife from the kitchen in the middle of the night and try to unlock your door to kill you, or when they try to drown your other child. I understand this will be hard for her. I always will love my daughter and will miss seeing her, but she needs to know that this happened because of her actions and negligence. So she does have a small little update. Tomorrow was the day I was supposed to drop her off at the wilderness therapy. A few days ago, I told my daughter where she was going, and she was understandably upset. She was very unstable the past couple of days. I told her that it wasn't fair to me that she treated us all very badly. She said it was clear we didn't want her here and that her friend's parents agreed to take her in. So I helped her pack her bags and dropped her off. Unfortunately, she didn't even last 2 days at their house because I got a call from her friend's dad telling me that they can't handle her sudden angry outbursts. So once they drop her off today, I'm continuing to take her to wilderness therapy. My husband and I have thought it was best to cut her off completely and move. Some people suggested changing our last names, and we will be doing that too. Here is a letter that I will send off with her now. Hello, daughter. One of our biggest regrets and mistakes was not being able to do more for you. It felt like there was so many puzzle pieces that were missing and couldn't be fixed. We as a family tried to be there for you, to look out for you. However, you failed to treat us with that same respect, and in return made us afraid for our safety. We sincerely hope this journey will teach you many things and help you discover whatever will help your life get on track. This journey with us, however, has come to an end. In 2 years' time, when you get out, we would have moved and changed our names. Please don't try to find us and instead use your freedom to live out your life. We don't feel safe around you, and we feel like it is best to not be in contact anymore. Regardless, we still want to recognize the good moments we had. We hope you will live a fulfilling life without us.
My brother-in-law tried to steal my house, and I broke the news to my husband in the most savage way possible. Story time. I inherited a holiday home from my grandma a couple of years ago. I never really get around to using it because it's about 6 hours away, and that is just effort. But I always keep the keys on the rack just next to the door where all of our other keys are. Since I'm literally never there, I got a little security system installed, so whenever someone's on the property, I get the notification. So my boyfriend's brother, who we'll call Steve, recently had his 4th child. And Steve and his wife Amy currently live in a really small apartment. But 3 days ago, they both came over to mine and my husband's house with all of their 4 children. So we're all having a really fun night. It's really, really nice. And then Steve all of a sudden just mentioned about my holiday home. It's like, yeah, your holiday home would be more than enough room for me and Amy to raise all of our kids. Subtle, Steve. Nice and subtle. He then goes on to mention about how I'm literally never there. I obviously knew what he was trying to get at here. I wasn't having any of it. So my exact response to it was, yeah, but you're not going to be living there, are you, Steve? Steve went silent. After this, Amy started gathering all of her kids and all of their belongings, and it was literally 5 minutes later they left. My husband hasn't said a single word to me about the conversation, and that night I did feel a little bit bad about my response because I know that they need the space. So fast forward to yesterday. I wake up for work and I realise that my husband isn't in bed next to me, but I wasn't thinking too much of it. So as I'm about to walk out the door to go to work, I go to the key rack and go to grab my car keys, and I realise that my holiday home keys aren't there. I text my husband and I'm like, hello, where are my keys? And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I accidentally took them when I was in a rush this morning. And I sighed a sigh of relief. I very distinctly remember telling this man not to lose my keys and to bring them back when he finishes work. So I just assumed, stupidly, that everything would be fine, and I went to work. So I'm sat at my desk, and then midday, I got a notification from my phone. It was alerting me to the fact that someone was on the property at my holiday home. I have never opened an app so quick in my whole life. But alas, I was not prepared for who I'd see. It was my boyfriend and Steve's family with a key and a moving van in the background. I was seething. I got home from work that day and who was sat on my sofa but my stupid husband. And he's acting like nothing has happened. I lost my shit. I was screaming at him, asking him why he thought it was okay to move his family into my house when I'd already said no. This man tried so hard to justify his actions. He said that he had a responsibility to protect his family, which made me even more angry because what about me? I told him instantly that we were over and he had 1 day to get his brother and his family out of my home. I told him if they weren't out within 24 hours, I was calling the police and they would have to remove them. And my husband said that he wasn't going to do that. He then told me to calm down. So I then packed my bags and went to a hotel for the night because I was not staying around this little snake. The next day, I checked the cameras, and of course, he was at my house, bloody Steve. And I, with no shame, called the police and told them that there were trespassers on my property and that they needed to be escorted off. Fast forward a day later. I go on the cameras for my house and I see a police car out the front. I got the popcorn ready. The next thing I see is the police escorting Steve and his wife out of the house in handcuffs. So just to piss him off a little bit, I took a screenshot of all of his family in handcuffs from the little security camera and I sent it directly to my husband with a little text that said, "Thanks for telling them to leave. Really appreciate it, babe." And I signed it off with a little heart. Am I the arsehole for not letting my siblings come to my wedding? Story time. So all my siblings are significantly older than me, and I wasn't invited to any of their weddings growing up because they wanted a child-free wedding. So I, of course, thought I'd be an exception because I was their little sister. Like, I was part of the family. My older sister, Amy, got married, and she was the first to have a child-free wedding. And then everyone, like sheep, just followed. When she got married, I was 10, so I kind of could see where she was coming from. But, you know, I was still really upset. Then my older brother got married when I was 12, and I obviously wasn't invited to that one. And then my sister got married when I was 15, so I was like, great, this is my time, I'm coming to this wedding. Because she had said that she wasn't going to have a child-free wedding. And of course, all my siblings chimed in and convinced her to have a child-free wedding. So she decided that she was going to cut out everyone from the wedding list that was under 16, which obviously included me. And at this point, I got really, really upset that I wasn't going to any of these weddings. So I screamed at my sister and my parents grounded me for 6 months. 6 months. Then my other brother got married when I was 17. So I thought, surely I'm in for this. But not gonna lie, at this point, I was past the point of caring and I was assuming that I wasn't gonna be invited for some silly reason. And of course, I wasn't invited, so I just sent him a really shitty text message that said congrats, and I didn't say anything else about the wedding. The wedding was happening, I just stayed in my room all day with my now soon-to-be husband. So I decided to get a little bit petty, and since I'm now getting married, I decided that none of them were allowed at my wedding. But when the invitations went out, and obviously they didn't get one, they turned up at my house. Ariana, what are you doing here? So I very simply explained, you didn't want me at your wedding, so now I don't want you at mine. I explained that it really, really upset me that I didn't get to see any of my siblings get married and now they should feel the same way. Their excuse. Oh my god, their excuse was that there was alcohol at the wedding and they didn't want any young, impressionable eyes seeing people drinking. And all I wanted was to be included in the wedding part. I didn't have any bother about the after party at all. How long have I had powder in my hair? I'm so sorry. My mum then started screaming like I have never heard anyone scream so loud in my life. She was screaming about how she wanted all of her kids to be together on a beautiful day. It's very ironic, Susan. I very clearly said that if they wanted to be invited for the wedding, I needed a very good reason as to why I wasn't allowed to come to theirs. And not just because of my age. Explanation, no invite. It made no sense to me why they left me out of literally everything up until now. Bit of an awkward silence. Then the truth came out. I wasn't actually their sister. I was actually their cousin. My jaw hit the floor. So apparently my dad was raising me, but when he passed away when I was 2 months old, they had no clue who my mum was. And that was when I was passed over to be raised by my uncle, so my dad. And when I was young, apparently I required quite a lot of attention. So my brothers and sisters started resenting me quite heavily. My brother Steve even went as far as to say that he hated me for that reason. My parents admitted that they were really ashamed that they had never told me. And I just didn't know how to deal with this, so I got up and left. Drama was too much for me.
Am I wrong for not wanting to give my younger daughter's future wedding fund to my older daughter's home deposit? Me, male 59, and my wife, female 53, have 2 daughters, let's call them Rose, female 27, and Lily, female 24. They both earn roughly the same amount of money, which is quite a lot for their ages. Rose has a 2-year-old and a husband who earns a fair bit less, and Lily has a boyfriend who earns a bit more. They both inherited a big chunk of money from my mother, enough for a 10 to 15% deposit on a house they could buy. The thing is, Rose has always lived beyond her means, and certainly her husband's. They've alluded to using some of their savings when their daughter Poppy was born, despite my wife looking after Poppy full-time while my daughter worked. And her husband recently confessed he hasn't saved a penny in almost 10 years. On the other hand, Lily and her boyfriend have almost doubled the original amount saved and never have issues with money, while we constantly seem to help Rose. Am I wrong for not wanting to give my younger daughter's future wedding fund to my older daughter's house deposit? Lily got approved for a lovely house with a 25% deposit. Rose had an offer accepted, but due to commuting costs and childcare, they could only get a mortgage for roughly half what they thought and only have 5%. So Rose asked Lily how on earth she'd been accepted on a bigger house as a younger couple. Lily was honest and told her how much they made as a couple and how much they were putting down, and Rose broke down. We paid for Rose's wedding and plan to do the same for Lily, but so far she's insisted she doesn't need the help. I want to keep the money so we can still offer it, but my wife wants to give it to Rose.